Imagine spending years and thousands of coins at a temple, praying for a child, only to realize you've been scammed. I stormed in demanding my money back, but then the most handsome monk I've ever seen stepped in. And what he did next completely shocked me. I went to a temple to ask for a refund after praying for a child with no result. The bald monks turned pale with fright and hurried to invite the old abbot over. The abbot then called for his most prized disciple. Looking at the young, handsome monk with a shaved head, I reached out my hand and demanded the incense money I had donated. But instead, he took my hand in his and spoke in a deep, alluring voice. "Weren't you praying for a child? I can make that wish come true for you." 1. I had been married to my husband for 3 years and still had no child. Everyone around me was anxious. So I began going to temples to pray for a child. Praying for children at temples was said to be very effective. Many women who were infertile at first managed to conceive after visiting. I went with complete sincerity, chanting scriptures, eating vegetarian meals, and donating countless amounts of incense money. But I got nothing in return. The only result was that after climbing so many stairs, I could now walk without getting out of breath. I felt I had been cheated. This temple clearly wasn't effective at all.
2.
And that temple was especially strange. When I stayed there, at first someone would knock on my door at night. When I asked who it was, there was no answer. Later, the voice claimed it had come to deliver me a child. It was a man's voice. Of course, I didn't open the door. Then things got worse. One monk actually dared to touch my hand. I broke his wrist on the spot. Considering that I still hadn't gotten pregnant and seeing how those monks behaved, I was certain this temple was nothing but a sham. It had wasted my time and cheated me out of my money. Once I realized this, I took my guards with me and went straight to the temple to demand my money back.
3.
When the monk at the gate saw me coming with a wooden stick and several attendants, he panicked and ran off to report it. Outside, the temple was still bustling with worshippers and incense smoke. The monks led me to a quiet room to discuss matters. I stated my demand and said coldly, "Return my money at once. Otherwise, I'll smash your temple to pieces, and I'll make sure every lady and young miss in the capital knows that the filthy monks here are lecherous scoundrels who constantly take advantage of women." The monks' faces all changed at once. I could tell this threat worked very well on them.
Humph.
Since they dared waste my time, I would definitely make them regret it. 4. The old abbot hurried over. After hearing what I had experienced, he pondered for a long time and said, "Benefactor, perhaps your destined connection with a child has not yet arrived."
Why be so stubborn about it?
What destined connection? It's simply that the Buddha in your temple is useless. I donated so much silver in vain, spit my money back out immediately. The abbot replied, "Madam Lin, truly, your fate has not yet arrived. Perhaps if you wait a little longer, you will have a child." I could see right through him. This old thing just wanted to keep my money and had no intention of returning it. I turned to my guards and ordered, "Smash the place." Then the offerings and statues were all smashed to pieces. The abbot was heartbroken and pointed at me trembling. "Showing such disrespect to the Buddha. Aren't you afraid of divine retribution?" I snorted. "The Buddha in your temple doesn't work at all. Why should I respect him? Give me back my money now, or I'll beat you up too." The old monk was clearly a bit frightened and quickly changed his tone. "Benefactor, I have a disciple who is skilled in both medicine and Buddhist teachings. Let him examine you and help you pray sincerely. Perhaps it will work." I said impatiently, "You bald monks are greedy and lustful." Absolutely.
5.
Before I could finish, a tall figure stepped in from the sunlight. With the light behind him, I couldn't see his face clearly. But just his posture alone gave him an otherworldly air. When I finally saw his face, I was even more stunned. It was a face so beautiful that it took one's breath away, even with a shaved head. There was actually such a handsome monk in this temple? How had I never seen him before? The old abbot smiled and said to the young monk, "My disciple, this benefactor has quite a temper. Come and take a look at her." After saying that, the abbot quickly left with the other monks. He even signaled for my guards to leave as well. 6. Snapping out of my daze over his looks, I immediately regained my senses. Give me back my money. This temple of yours is clearly a scam. He looked at me with a faint smile. His eyes were truly like those of a Buddha, full of compassion, yet also strangely distant. I was momentarily stunned. With him watching me so calmly, I felt like nothing more than a clown throwing a tantrum. And the aura around him made people instinctively want to bow at his feet. Strange. Too strange. Just as I was lost in thought, his deep, pleasant voice sounded. Benefactor, if you truly wish for a child, this humble monk can help you.
7.
I snorted. Your temple has already wasted an entire year of my time. In that year alone, I donated 10,000 taels of silver. Every time I came to pray for a child, you all said I wasn't sincere enough and needed to donate more money. I donated more, and what did I get? The more I spoke, the more aggrieved I felt, and I couldn't stop my eyes from reddening. If I still couldn't get pregnant, my husband would take a concubine. Then what kind of life would I have left? If I never had a child, what hope would there be for the rest of my life? And children are so lovely, I truly wanted one of my own. As I poured out my grievances, that rotten monk actually started beating a wooden fish drum. Furious, I shouted, "Refund my money! Give it back right now, or I'll smash this broken temple to pieces." The monk, with great patience, stopped beating the drum and said to me, "Benefactor, I know a bit of medicine as well. Why don't I take your pulse first?" "It's useless." I wiped my tears. I've seen all the famous doctors in the capital and taken medicine for over 2 years, and none of it helped. What did the doctors say? They said I'm perfectly healthy, just that my destined time hasn't come yet. He immediately responded, "See?
Even the doctors said that."
You can't blame our temple." I glared at him. "Refund my money." He quickly tried to soothe me. "Has your husband seen a doctor as well?"
8.
Having a child is a woman's business. There's no point blaming my husband. The monk. Having a child is something both a man and a woman share responsibility for. If the man can't do it, no matter how healthy the woman is, she won't be able to conceive. Impossible. I widened my eyes. Are you just saying that so you don't have to give me my money back? Everyone says it's the woman's fault if she can't conceive. And don't a lot of women get pregnant after visiting your temple? That's proof it's the woman's problem. The monk said, "You can bring your husband to the temple with you. I'm very skilled in medicine. I can tell immediately." He flat out refused to refund my money. And with his face being so handsome, I didn't feel like I could push him too hard.
9.
When I returned home, I told my husband to go with me to the temple to pray for a child. He agreed. He wanted a child too. Who wouldn't want a child? But fate wasn't on our side. The next day, we went to the temple together. The same monk appeared again. Standing next to my husband, he looked a full head taller than him. I had thought he was tall before. But next to my husband, the difference was obvious. I couldn't help overthinking. Other branches of the family had children already. But honestly, most of them grew up rather ordinary, slim, and small. I personally liked children who were chubby, fair-skinned, and well-built. I heard that a child's size depends a lot on the parent's physique. My build was average, not very tall or strong. And my husband's build was average too.
10.
The monk, however, was tall. His child would certainly have been tall.
Truly enviable.
But he was a monk, so he couldn't have children. I secretly felt a bit disappointed. The monk told us he could help us check for a peaceful pulse. My husband, trusting him, let the monk feel his pulse. I did the same. Even the monk's fingers were beautifully shaped. After feeling our pulses, he said we were healthy and left. I realized that this temple really put on a show just to avoid refunding money. A couple of days later, I went back to the temple. The monk directly told me, "Benefactor, there's no way your husband can conceive." I spat fiercely. I didn't believe it. They were just trying to cheat me out of my money. The monk insisted my husband couldn't have children. I could see he wasn't lying. My heart sank. 3 years. I had waited 3 years, tried for 3 years, and now my husband couldn't have children? He clearly was capable. 11. The monk shook his head and explained, being able to perform and being able to conceive are two different things. Some men can perform, but cannot father children. Some cannot perform, but still conceive. How can a man who can't perform conceive? It took me a moment to realize how awkward the topic sounded, naturally leading one to think of bedroom matters. I asked, curious. You're a monk. You know about these things? Don't eat pork, but I've seen pigs.
Sigh.
There was no reasoning with this monk. My husband and I tried for another 2 months. I even tried all sorts of remedies, even eating toads. Still no pregnancy. In the end, my husband took a concubine. Heartbroken, I went back to the temple again.
12.
I went to the temple often. There was nowhere else I could go. Women couldn't appear freely in public. But going to a temple was acceptable. It was normal to pray. This time, however, I wasn't there to pray. I just didn't want to stay in the mansion. Thinking about my husband being intimate with another woman made me sick inside. Actually, I wanted to see that monk again. His Dharma name was Kongji. Whenever I visited, Kongji came to receive me. Now I sat on a meditation cushion while he chanted sutras and struck the wooden fish. I felt bored. Life was unbearably dull. I couldn't help imagining what my husband and the concubine were doing. They were probably kissing, maybe even undressing. The thought made me feel disgusted. 13. Kongji said, "Stop worrying. It's not you who can't conceive. My husband took a concubine. Then it will soon prove that your husband cannot have children. What am I supposed to do?" In this dynasty, there was no rule that a woman could divorce if the husband couldn't conceive. I might be abandoned for being unable to have children. If that happened, I'd lose my dowry. My family would consider me a disgrace, probably forcing me to become a nun in a mountain temple. Thinking of this made me terrified. I couldn't help crying. Kongji wiped my tears. I watched him use a fine handkerchief. Every time he came, his monk's robe was different, always white, but embroidered with subtle patterns. It looked simple, but was actually very expensive. I couldn't help complaining. "You're spending my money, dressing well, using good things. Don't you feel any guilt? If your temple had given me a child, I would have willingly spent on you. But instead, you wasted my time and almost got me abandoned." 14. Kongji looked at me with compassion and pity. "Benefactor, you cannot focus only on money. In this holy Buddhist place, if your heart is not sincere, the Buddha will hold it against you." I glared at him fiercely, then slumped and asked in frustration, "Why can other women conceive and I cannot? Can't the Buddha cure my husband?" Kongji started striking the wooden fish again. He didn't want to talk, so he just tapped the drum. Really impatient. I looked at him gloomily while he struck the drum. I had to admit, he was still quite good-looking. Watching him, I got hungry, so I started eating the offerings. To distract myself, I asked for a small courtyard in the temple to stay. In the afternoon, I walked around with my maid. I saw a few monks carrying donation boxes into a courtyard. The boxes were heavy, clearly full of money. The temple also had lots of land, collecting rent from it. Several other monks carried offerings into the same courtyard. I quietly followed to watch. I saw the monks devouring the offerings in huge bites. A few of them were counting money with big smiles, recording it as they counted. These monks were all round and well-fed, clearly living well. Meanwhile, outside, many commoners were skin and bones. 15. This place really was nothing but a money-swindling den. I was just about to rush out and demand my money back when I saw, on the other side, a woman and a monk enter a room together and close the door. I found it strange. Even though monks are supposed to be free of worldly desires, they are still men. Normally, when chanting scriptures or discussing matters, doors are never closed, and servants are usually present. Even if they needed to talk about something servants shouldn't hear, they would still leave the door open. It was already evening. Except for those staying at the temple, all other worshippers had left. After thinking it over, I quietly circled around to the back of that room and pressed myself against the wall to eavesdrop. Before long, I heard sounds of moaning and panting from inside. There were also noises of bodies colliding. Anyone could tell they were doing something improper. I clapped a hand over my mouth in shock.
16.
Back in my own courtyard, I still couldn't recover from what I had witnessed. The little maid who followed me looked just as dazed. I recognized that woman. She was the daughter-in-law of the Sun family in the capital. When she got married, I was still just a child. A few years ago, she couldn't bear children and was so depressed she could barely straighten her back. I heard her life had been miserable. At one point, she even tried to kill herself. Later, she finally got pregnant. Then she gave birth again and again. Now she had 2 sons and a daughter. But I also heard she was extremely jealous and never allowed her husband's concubines to have children. I used to wonder how she managed that when her own life had once been so hard. Now, everything made sense. Her husband couldn't have children. She must have conceived outside and brought the children home. 17. Early the next morning, with dark circles under my eyes, I went to find Kongji and demanded a refund. He instantly changed from an unfathomable master into a warm and friendly acquaintance. I could see it clearly now. Every monk in this temple loved money. He asked with concern, "You look a bit pale. Didn't you rest well?" I knew this was just his tactic, to keep me from bringing up the money. But he was far too handsome.
And he stood so close to me.
I couldn't bring myself to scold him the way I scolded the other bald monks. Thinking of what I saw last night between that monk and the woman, I quietly stepped farther away from him. Was he deliberately standing so close to seduce me? Was this how their temple delivered children? I finally understood everything. There was no way I would join in their filthy schemes.
Disgusting.
Refund my money. 18.
He sighed.
Yesterday afternoon, didn't you see it yourself? We truly did deliver what you asked for. You were the one who didn't want it before. What could we do? I stared at him in shock. He actually said it so bluntly. And wait, those monks before, had they been trying to seduce me? I had never realized it at all. The thought had never crossed my mind. My face burned with anger, my hands trembling. Shameless. All of you are shameless. If you don't return my money, I'll tell everyone about your crimes. In truth, I didn't actually want to tell anyone. What did it have to do with me? I only wanted my money back. As for having a child, I could only take things one step at a time. If it really came down to it, I could adopt a child. But I wanted one of my own. Otherwise, spending my money on someone else's child would make me miserable. To make myself look more determined, I turned around angrily and prepared to leave. But Kongji suddenly grabbed my hand. 19. His grip was strong. The moment he held me, I froze. It was a strange, unfamiliar feeling that made my heart race. He said gently, "We are actually doing good deeds. Calm down and listen to me, all right?" There was something almost magical in his voice, making it hard for me to refuse. We sat down on the meditation cushions. Thinking that all these offerings had been wasted on those morally corrupt monks made me furious. So I pulled all the offerings over and began eating while Kongji talked. I noticed the corner of his eye twitch. He said, "Yesterday, you saw that lady, didn't you? The young mistress of the Sun family. Back then, because she couldn't bear children, she came here wanting to jump into a well. Why didn't she jump at her own house? I don't know."
"Don't interrupt me," he said.
"Just because her husband couldn't father children, she was supposed to die for it? Is that fair? And if she died and her husband remarried, wouldn't the next woman be driven to death too?" So the abbot decided to have a monk help her. This was an act of compassion. Monks never leave the temple, and we are free of worldly ties. No one would ever find out. That lady got her child and was able to live. And from what I see, she has lived quite well these past years. This is a great act of merit. If we hadn't done this, what better solution could there have been? As a fellow woman, could you really bear to watch her die? Our temple doesn't go around messing with young wives. We only help those whose hearts are sincere. If they are sincere, we help. If not, we dare not interfere.
20.
When he spoke of insincere believers, it felt as though he was hinting that I was exactly that kind. There was even a faint sense of disappointed reproach hidden in his words. I couldn't help asking, have you also helped women conceive this way? Kongji shook his head.
No.
I'm too good-looking. If a woman fell in love with me, it would cause endless trouble. My master said I should only be used for extremely difficult cases. I took a vicious bite of the apple in my hand.
What exactly did he mean by that?
I still insisted. Fine, I won't tell anyone. Just refund my money. He changed the subject again. Don't you want a child?
Money is a dead thing.
It can't buy you happiness. Why not exchange it for a child instead? You bald monks take advantage of people and still want to charge me 10,000 taels of silver? Do you think my money falls from the sky? I could go outside and find any man I want for free. Kongji smiled faintly. If you find a man outside and he clings to you, you'll be in serious trouble. And if the old maids and servants around you find out, things will inevitably be exposed. He stood up. Think it over. There's no rush. With that, he calmly walked away. Watching his tall figure retreat, I felt a little dazed. Sometimes, life has a way of turning everything upside down when you least expect it. Our heroine has faced betrayal, deception, and heartbreak. And now, the temple monk who shook her world is back in the picture. Will she finally take control of her fate, or will the consequences of desire pull her deeper into this tangled web? Let's see what happens next. 21. I returned to the mansion. My husband had taken 2 concubines, both with ample curves, clearly capable of bearing children. Since I had no child, the intimacy between my husband and me had grown dull, leaving me with little to do. Kongji's impact on me had been huge. Thinking about my money being swindled made my heart ache. Fortunately, the new year was approaching. The mansion was bustling, preparing for celebrations, greeting and sending off guests. Every time we met relatives and friends, seeing their fair-skinned, chubby children made my heart ache with envy, but looking at those cute little ones also cheered me up a bit. My husband's 2 concubines had been in the mansion for months, yet there was no news of pregnancy. It seemed Kongji had been right. My husband truly couldn't father children. Knowing this, I hated him all the more. Useless, making me swallow bitter medicine for so long. 22. I couldn't spread the news about my husband's incapacity. First, no one would believe me. Second, his inability to conceive would harm my reputation. My life was tied to him. If he had no children, I'd have none either, and as we grew old, we'd be bullied. Third, I didn't want to adopt someone else's child. I only wanted to raise my own, love my child, and give them everything good. Why should I raise someone else's child? I remembered a wealthy merchant in the capital who adopted a son, nurtured him carefully, and left him the family fortune. Yet the adopted son turned against him, locked him in a small courtyard, fed him nothing but spoiled meals, and sometimes refused him even water. The adopted son even brought his own biological parents to live with him. The merchant had bought the child, and in the end, the son wasted the family fortune gambling, just like his biological father. Whether an adopted child treats you well in old age depends entirely on their conscience. On the 3rd day of the new year, I visited my parents' home. All my siblings had a crowd of children running around, full of joy. It made me insanely envious. 23. After reflecting on all this, I decided to seek out Kongji. When he saw me, he looked slightly pained and asked, "Has your husband's concubine conceived?" I shook my head. He gave a "I knew it" look and said, "See, it's not your fault." He studied my expression and added, "So you've come to terms with it? You want to take a child from our temple?" That was exactly what I was thinking. After all, it was for the sake of my husband and me. And in a way, I felt I was doing a good deed. But this was, in any case, shameful. Kongji looked knowing and said, "Then I'll inform the abbot. Don't worry, your merit is great. You can choose freely, even multiple children if you like." He smiled, finding it amusing, and I blushed. Still, I stayed composed and said, I choose you. He waved his hands frantically. I won't do that. I am a true monk. He pressed his palms together and intoned, Amitabha. I glared at him. Stop pretending. Your master sent you here to seduce me, didn't he? If you refuse, refund my money. 10,000 taels. I could buy 10 handsome men and eliminate them all. No one would ever know. 24. Kongji maintained a look of steadfastness, claiming he was training celibacy and couldn't sell himself.
Ha.
I laughed angrily. Earlier, he said the monks delivering children were doing good deeds. Now, when it was his turn, he claimed he wouldn't give himself. Then he said, Benefactor, I'll tell the abbot so he can arrange for you to choose. With that, he tried to leave. I was faster. I slammed the door shut. I said, Your rotten temple cheated me out of my money, wasted my time, and now you dare play with me? Do you take me for a vegetarian? He sighed helplessly. Calm down. What kind of monk do you want? We'll let you choose. This kind, I said. And with that, I boldly lunged at him and hugged him. My face burned with embarrassment. I hadn't expected to be so reckless in a temple. But this shameless world had forced me into it. 25. Kongji froze for a moment, then began to struggle. He was incredibly strong. But I clung stubbornly, using both hands and feet, and held him tightly. He pushed me, and I pulled at his robe. His monk's robe was loose and quickly torn open. It revealed a broad, muscular chest. Unlike my husband's thin, frail frame, this body radiated power at a glance. Most monks in the temple were either bulky or overweight, but Kongji was tall and strong. For the moment, he paused his struggle to fix his robe. I took the opportunity to kiss him. And I kissed hard, over and over. He froze. In that instant, his face changed in the most captivating way. It was as if his whole world had collapsed.
26.
Just as I was about to take things further, the door was pushed open. The old abbot stared at us in shock. Kongji immediately pushed me away and ran. The abbot intoned Amitabha and said, Benefactor, Kongji isn't available. There are plenty of handsome monks in our temple. Feel free to choose. I composed myself, hiding my shame, and spoke firmly. I want Kongji. Otherwise, refund my money, or I'll expose your misdeeds. The old abbot frowned. Heaven values life. We're just helping helpless ladies. Then, he quietly whispered Kongji's residence to me. This whole temple is obsessed with money. How dare they call themselves monks? They're worse than me. 27. That evening, I went to Kongji's room.
He was meditating.
I checked outside. No one was around. I walked over, slowly removing my clothes until only my belly wrap remained. Kongji kept his eyes closed and said, Benefactor, don't be attached. What are you doing? He opened his eyes. I rolled my eyes. I came to have you help me conceive.
I won't do that, madam.
Don't disrupt my practice. If you were truly devoted, nothing I do would shake you. Resisting temptation would only strengthen your cultivation. He fell silent, deep in thought.
Humph.
Kongji, so handsome, and refusing to help me conceive, what a waste. Since I'd have to resort to a random man otherwise, I'd make sure to pick the tallest, best-looking one. If I became like this, Kongji had contributed to it, so he had to bear the consequences. I continued. Does your cultivation mean shutting yourself away, avoiding contact with everyone? Then how can you claim your mind is steadfast?
28.
He calmed down, then continued meditating, chanting and striking the wooden fish, completely unmoved by my actions. He was like a lamb in a tiger's den. I consumed him all in one go. At first, Kongji struggled. Eventually, struggling was useless, and he surrendered. In the end, he also felt the pleasure of it and succumbed. Being with Kongji made it even more thrilling. Committing such acts in a sacred Buddhist space was irresistibly exciting. 29. After being with Kongji, my appearance was radiant. This is the effect of the so-called virginal skill. From then on, I returned to the temple as before, burning incense and praying for a child. Finally, this was real fertility practice. I asked Kongji, "You won't help any other woman conceive, will you? Do you take me for what kind of person? I'm a proper monk." Still, he rarely left his room. I'd never seen him before. I asked why the abbot never assigned him publicly. He looked embarrassed. The master said if I went out, the other disciples wouldn't have a chance to save souls. And my own reach is limited. I paused. This temple is a den of debauchery, isn't it? 30. To avoid suspicion, I continued sleeping with my husband at home. After the bland food and my husband's thin body, it took some getting used to. The good news, 3 months later, I was diagnosed as pregnant. I nearly cried with joy. My husband was overjoyed too. Seeing his happiness, I even felt a little proud. He married such a good wife. He couldn't conceive, but I could still give him children. Pregnancy became my priority, and I stopped visiting the temple. Though sometimes in dreams, I'd still recall my escapades with Kongji. I didn't love Kongji. I just purely wanted to sleep with him. 31. After 10 months, I gave birth to a son. I loved him dearly. I wished him to grow tall and strong, so we named him Zhuang. My husband and I cherished Zhuang, holding him as if he might melt in our hands. He really did grow tall and strong, and was adorably simple and good-natured. I finally understood what it was to truly love someone. I had never loved anyone before. But Zhuang was different. Every smile, every frown, I adored. Just looking at him made me content. I wanted to give him everything good. Yet one child still felt too few. 32. Zhuang had to have siblings, so they could help each other. Alone, he might struggle. We valued a strong family and prosperous descendants. Kongji was so wealthy, and Zhuang was his child. He should give all his money to him. I also had to warn Kongji not to help others conceive. Otherwise, what if Zhuang married his own sister one day? When Zhuang was just over a year old, I took him to the temple. Kongji still refused to see me. Only when I threatened to destroy the temple did he appear. He said helplessly, "Miss Shen, you already have a child. Why come again?" I said angrily, "You're heartless. Don't you want to see your own child?" Zhuang ran in from outside. He bore an extremely striking resemblance to Kongji. Thankfully, Kongji didn't appear publicly, otherwise, it would have exposed everything. 33. Kongji froze, then squatted down to look at Zhuang. Zhuang came in, shoved a toad at me, and ran off to play again. I said, "He's your child. You should raise him." Kongji widened his eyes in disbelief. "The child you prayed for, you want me to raise him?" I stared at him silently. He said shakily, "If I'd known you'd be so shameless, I'd have stolen your 10,000 taels myself back then." I snorted coldly. "I'll give him a brother or sister next." Kongji, "So you plan to freeload?" The answer was obvious. Kongji looked at Zhuang playing wildly in the courtyard, his gaze softening. He's really growing up well. In the end, I left the temple with everything I wanted. 34. In this way, over the next 5 years, I gave birth to 2 sons and a daughter. All 3 children were tall, strong, and healthy. Seeing them together filled me with satisfaction. Life in the backyard was busy but joyful. I constantly worried about the 3 of them, but I was happy. I visited the temple a few times each year. Each time, Kongji would give me money. Yes, that corrupt temple, which had fleeced so many, finally benefited me. 35. Kongji was going to India to study the scriptures. He wanted to see the 3 children before leaving. I gladly agreed. When my husband learned I was taking the children to the temple, he went crazy and insisted on following. He liked the children too. And he firmly believed the children were his. In truth, the children didn't resemble either of us. At the temple, I had already planned to send my husband away so Kongji could speak to the children alone. But he suddenly appeared in the doorway, glaring at me like a demon from hell. I was startled. Even back at home, his expression remained dark and terrifying. Yet he restrained himself. 36. That night, when everyone else had left, he immediately wore a gloomy expression. My husband demanded, "You cheated behind my back. These children aren't mine." I was even angrier. "Do you expect me to cheat in front of you? Hiding it from you is out of respect." He drew a deep breath. "Shen Yirong, don't be shameless." I glared at him. Shameless? If it weren't to continue your lineage, would I have sought a monk? If you could conceive, would I ruin my reputation? A good woman doesn't serve two husbands. I'm the one who suffered the most. I can't conceive? Humph, didn't you notice? Your two concubines didn't give you a single child. Didn't you suspect something? He staggered back a couple steps. I looked at him with disdain. Who are you putting on that show for? You can't conceive, yet you have plenty of children. Zhuang is already 5. He gritted his teeth at me. Does anyone else know about this? Of course not. The 3 children resemble that monk so much. That monk never shows himself to others. He fell silent. 37. He gritted his teeth and restrained himself. Soon after, he sent the 2 concubines away. To the outside world, he claimed our marriage was loving and strong, and now with children, he would care only for me. Who could compete with his audacity? Yet life for the 5 of us was warm and joyful. The 3 adorable children filled the emptiness of our lives with laughter and novelty. Time flew. Before I knew it, Zhuang was grown and married. Heir Zhuang reached marriageable age as well. Both children had their own kids. I preferred a prosperous family and didn't want my daughter to suffer by marrying away, so I let her choose her husband carefully. Living together, if he treated her badly, our family could teach him a lesson. 38. When I was 45, my husband and I had 9 grandchildren. One of my children had 3 children each. The house was lively and full of joy. The children were filial. You really had to give birth yourself. My daughter had 2 husbands. The first had an affair with a maid, was beaten, and died shortly after. The second treated her well. Akongji had returned from India years earlier. He had studied Buddhism for over a decade, translated scriptures, and traveled thousands of miles back. When I visited him, he was no longer the handsome monk of my memories. He had aged, with wrinkles on his face. I regretted seeing him. Better to preserve the image of him, as I remembered. 39. When I was 50, my husband passed away. Before he died, he held my hand, tears clouding his eyes. Thank you, Yirong. You gave me children and grandchildren. He was indeed grateful. I said softly, Rest well. It's all I should have done. He closed his eyes peacefully. The children and grandchildren wept in a chorus.
40.
Kongji died when I was 60. On his deathbed, he sent for me to come to the temple. I knew he was near death. Although I wasn't eager to see a dying old man, he had given me so much money, meant for my children and grandchildren. Out of respect for the money, I went. I brought my 3 children and their children with me. 41. I had the children and grandchildren kneel, praying that the master would chant for their father in the afterlife. They obeyed. Kongji lay on his couch, gazing at me kindly. I was grateful to him. He gestured to a nearby chest, indicating it was all mine. I opened it to find deeds, gold, silver, and bonds. I was moved. He struggled to speak. Actually, back then, I liked you. Thank you for giving me children and grandchildren. I shook my head, sighing. Amitabha. Heaven values life. I just followed fate. Kongji, go in peace. The end. Honestly, watching her go from furious to completely captivated by the monk was wild. You can feel the tension, the frustration, and that strange pull between them, like fire and ice colliding. It's messy, it's bold, and it's somehow addictive. I can't decide if I'm rooting for her or just in awe of how daring she is. Either way, what a story.